A rough man sneered at a royal guard, confident that the soldier would not answer him. However, when the rough man raised his fist at an old veteran, the guard's silence broke in an instant. What happened next left everyone around utterly shocked, and the rough man was left feeling humiliated. The royal guard stayed at his post, a steady symbol of discipline and old tradition. He stood there in his bright red tunic and his famous bearskin hat. All eyes were on him as he remained perfectly still. A crowd had gathered near the palace gates, tourists taking photos, people whispering to one another, all admiring the guard's calm and unbroken composure. Then suddenly, the peaceful murmur of the square was broken by heavy footsteps. A man pushed his way through the crowd. He had broad shoulders and a confident, swaggering walk that made it clear he was used to getting his own way. As he came closer, his voice rang out, mocking and sharp. "Well, would you look at this?" He sneered. "What's the matter, big guy? Are you too scared to speak to me?" His tone dripped with contempt as he stood there, comparing the guard to a lifeless statue. The man was tall and solidly built, dressed in rumpled clothes that clashed with the neat appearance of the tourists around him. There was something unnerving in the way he moved, as if he were a predator stalking its prey. His eyes locked onto the guard, full of both amusement and challenge, and a sneer curled on his lips. As he spoke, the atmosphere shifted. Parents pulled their children closer, and others exchanged nervous looks, unsure of what the man might do next. But the royal guard did not move. His gaze stayed fixed ahead, his body as firm and steady as ever. The rough man stepped closer, his voice growing louder. "Oh, I see how it is," he said. "You think you are better than the rest of us, hiding behind that uniform, pretending to be something special. You are nothing but a puppet, a statue in a funny hat. What are you even protecting? Nothing?" The crowd held its breath, their eyes darting between the rough man and the guard, while a few brave souls recorded the scene on their phones. Despite the tension, the guard remained silent and unmoved. The rough man laughed harshly, his voice grating against the uneasy quiet. "Come on, say something. Or are you not allowed to speak? Are you just here to stand around looking pretty for the tourists?" Leaning in so close that he was only inches from the guard's face, he taunted in a low, mocking whisper. Not even a blink came from the guard. His stillness was meant to show discipline and resolve, but it only seemed to make the rough man angrier. "Oh, you think you are tough, do you?" the man shouted, stepping back and gesturing broadly towards the crowd. "Look at this. Everyone acts as if he is a hero, but I see through you. You are nothing. Just a man paid to stand still." The crowd stirred uncomfortably. Some voices rose in a quiet protest, saying, "Leave him alone. What is your problem?" Yet the rough man ignored them, his focus entirely on the guard. With a widening sneer, he took another step closer. "What's the matter, soldier boy? Can't handle the truth? Come on, do something instead of just standing there like a mute." He jabbed his finger into the guard's shoulder, and a few onlookers gasped, but the guard did not move. The rough man laughed again, louder this time, spreading his arms wide as if performing for an audience. "Look at this. This is your great hero," he declared, his tone dripping with ridicule. "He does not even have the guts to stand up for himself. What a joke!" The square fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the man's taunts. Every eye was fixed on the scene, and the tension in the air was almost too heavy to bear. Some in the crowd whispered nervously, unsure if anyone should step in, while others simply stood back. With a low, venomous voice, the rough man continued, "You are nothing." His mocking laughter echoed through the square, cutting through the thick silence. Tourists stood frozen, their eyes glued to the confrontation. Some clutched their phones tightly, recording every moment, while others exchanged anxious whispers. The rough man, emboldened by the guard's lack of response, took another step closer, and jabbed his finger into the guard's chest. His sneer grew darker. "What's the matter? Are you just going to stand there? You are not even man enough to defend yourself." Still, the guard did not budge. His gaze did not waver, and his posture remained firm, as though the rough man did not exist at all. This lack of reaction only made the rough man more frustrated. He began pacing in front of the guard like a caged animal, his voice rising as he ranted, "You think you are better than me, do you? Standing there all stiff, as if you are made of stone. I see through you. You are just a coward hiding behind that silly uniform." The crowd murmured uneasily. A few brave voices called out, "Leave him alone!" But the rough man ignored these pleas. Leaning in once more, his voice turned into a taunting whisper. "You do not scare me. You are not some untouchable hero. You are nothing." He then laughed loudly, turning to address the crowd as if he were on stage. "Look at this guy! You all came here to see a soldier, did you not? A man of honor? Well, here he is, letting me walk all over him. What a so-called hero." The tension in the square was palpable. Parents pulled their children close, whispering for them to look away. Older tourists shook their heads in disapproval, while younger ones recorded every second with wide eyes. The air felt heavy, as if the whole crowd were holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The rough man was not finished. He reached out again and shoved the guard's shoulder hard enough to make the crowd gasp. The guard's body moved slightly from the push, but he did not react. His silence was like a strong wall of resolve. "Is that all you are going to take?" The rough man sneered. "What's the matter? Too scared to fight back?" As murmurs in the crowd grew louder and a few people started to move closer out of concern, one woman whispered to her husband, "Someone must stop this. What if he gets violent?" But before anyone could intervene, the rough man raised his voice again, turning his anger into a show. "You are pathetic," he spat, his tone full of venom. "You do not deserve the respect people give you. You are merely a statue, a puppet on display for the tourists. That is all you are." Then he reached out once more and knocked the guard's bearskin hat askew. The crowd gasped. To them, the sight of the guard's neat uniform being disturbed felt like a violation of something sacred. Even the rough man seemed briefly surprised by his own boldness, but he recovered quickly, laughing loudly. "Look at that!" he shouted, pointing at the shifted hat. "Not so perfect now, are you? Maybe you are not as untouchable as you think." The guard remained silent. His posture did not change, even though his hat was now slightly askew. His stillness was unbroken, but the tension around him grew even thicker. The rough man's laughter slowed as the silence stretched on. He paced again, his movements becoming more erratic, his taunts losing some of their edge. "Come on," he muttered almost to himself. "Say something! Do something!" But the guard still did not move. Frustrated, the rough man turned to the crowd and spread his arms wide. "You see this? This is your great hero. He is nothing. He will not even defend himself." The crowd remained quiet, their unease obvious. The tension had reached a boiling point, yet the guard's silence stayed unbroken. His presence was a quiet testament to discipline and resolve. Still, for the rough man, it was not enough. He needed to break something or someone, and if the guard would not give him what he wanted, he would find someone else who would. The rough man's taunts grew louder and more hostile as he tried to provoke a reaction. The crowd stood frozen. Some whispered nervously while others looked away, unsure of how to help. For a moment, it seemed that no one would step forward to stop the situation. Then, cutting through the tense silence, a calm but firm voice said, "That is enough." The rough man turned sharply, his smirk faltering for just a moment as he looked for the source of the voice. An older man had stepped out from the crowd. He was not tall or especially imposing, but there was a quiet authority in his manner. His silver hair shone in the sunlight, and the lines on his face showed a lifetime of experience. The crowd's attention shifted from the rough man to this unexpected figure. The older man stopped a few feet away from the rough man, standing straight, and repeated, "That is enough." The rough man let out a harsh laugh. "Oh, great. Now we have Grandpa coming to the rescue." He jeered, turning to the crowd with an exaggerated shrug. "What next? A marching band?" But the old man did not flinch. His gaze stayed locked on the rough man, steady and calm. "You are making a fool of yourself," he said simply. "Leave the man alone. He is only doing his duty." The rough man's smirk turned sour as he mocked the idea that the guard was doing anything more than standing still for the tourists. The older man stepped forward again, his calm manner unwavering. "You do not know the first thing about what it takes to stand there," he said. "The discipline, the training, the responsibility. You see a man in a uniform, but you do not see the sacrifice behind it." The rough man's face darkened, and his bravado faltered for a moment before he stepped closer to the older man. "Who do you think you are?" he growled. "You think you are better than me because you have a big mouth and some fancy words." The older man met his gaze evenly, his voice quiet but firm. "I know what it means to serve, to protect, and to respect those who do. That is something you clearly do not understand." Soft murmurs began among the crowd, and a few people nodded in agreement. The older man's words carried a weight that cut through the rough man's arrogance, leaving the square in a heavy silence. But the rough man was not done. His face twisted with anger as he stepped closer, towering over the older man. "You think you are tough, old man," he snarled. "Maybe you need to be taught a lesson about minding your own business." The older man stood his ground, though a flicker of unease passed over his face. "Violence does not make you strong," he said calmly. "It only makes you weak." The rough man let out a low growl, clenching his fists. "Weak, is it?" he muttered. "I will show you weak." Before anyone could react, he raised his arm, his fist aimed at the older man's face. The older man's breath caught in his throat as he braced himself, and the crowd gasped. Parents shielded their children's eyes, and several onlookers cried out, "No!" In a blur of motion, the royal guard broke his silence. His hand shot out to intercept the rough man's fist with a precision that left everyone stunned. The guard's grip was as strong as iron, and his calm did not waver, even as the square reached a fever pitch of tension. The older man, shocked, blinked as he saw the royal guard step forward, now standing protectively before him. With a low and steady voice, the guard said, "That is enough." The rough man struggled against the guard's firm hold, his earlier confidence replaced by frustration and fear. "What the—" he stammered, his voice trembling. The guard continued, his tone calm and controlled. "You have crossed the line. This ends now." The square fell silent as every eye fixed on the guard, who advanced with deliberate, controlled movements. Murmurs of disbelief and admiration began to rise from the crowd. The older man took a hesitant step back, his voice trembling with gratitude. "Thank you," he said softly. The guard did not reply. His focus remained on the rough man, his grip tightening just slightly as he added, "You have crossed the line, and you will face the consequences." The rough man looked around desperately, as if seeking support from the crowd, but all he found were disapproving looks. His bravado had vanished, replaced by panic. He struggled against the royal guard's unyielding grip, his face a mix of frustration and despair. A few in the crowd murmured in awe. "Did you see that?" someone said. Phones were raised high, capturing every second of the guard's calm yet commanding presence. The rough man tried to regain control, gritting his teeth and shouting, "Let me go! You are not supposed to move. You are just a statue, a decoration. You have no right to touch me." The guard's expression remained unchanged. His voice, when he spoke again, was calm but firm. "My duty is to protect," he said. "That includes protecting the people around me from men like you." With a swift, practiced motion, he released the rough man's wrist briefly in order to reposition himself. Then, in one smooth movement, he gripped the rough man's arm and twisted it behind his back. The rough man yelped and his knees buckled, forced into a kneeling position by the guard's controlled pressure. The crowd gasped, their earlier unease giving way to admiration. "Get off me!" the rough man shouted, his voice cracking as he struggled. "You cannot do this!" The guard leaned in, his tone low and steady. "I gave you every chance to stop," he said. "You ignored the warnings. Now you must face the consequences of your actions." The rough man's struggles weakened. His earlier confidence had completely vanished. His head hung low as he muttered, "This is not fair." The guard did not flinch. He stood tall and resolute, holding the rough man in place with careful precision. He did not seem angry or vengeful. His actions were measured, purposeful, and professional. As the rough man knelt there, subdued and humiliated, the guard spoke directly, his voice calm yet full of authority. "You think strength is about shouting the loudest or picking on those who cannot fight back. That is not strength, it is cowardice." The rough man did not answer, his face hidden in shame as he stared at the ground. "True strength," the guard continued, "is about knowing when to act and when to hold back. It is about standing firm in the face of provocation without losing control. It is about protecting others, not tearing them down." At that moment, the crowd, silent until now, burst into applause. A few people called out, "Well said," while others nodded in agreement. The energy in the square had changed. The older man, who had been watching from a few steps away, stepped forward. His voice, though shaky, was full of gratitude and respect. "You did not have to do this," he said, addressing the guard. "But you did. You stepped in when I needed help. Thank you for protecting me and showing us all what true honor looks like." The guard gave a small nod, his expression as composed as ever, though his focus remained on the rough man. The subdued man looked up at last, his face flushed with a mix of shame and anger. "You think you're better than me, do you?" he muttered quietly. The guard did not blink. "This is not about being better," he replied. "It is about doing what is right, and what is right is making sure that people like you cannot hurt anyone else." At that moment, 2 palace security officers arrived, alerted by the commotion. They quickly took in the scene, the subdued man and the royal guard standing over him. One officer stepped forward, nodding respectfully to the guard. "We will take it from here," he said. With deliberate and controlled movements, the guard released the rough man's arm. The rough man winced as the officers pulled him to his feet. His earlier defiance had vanished completely, and as he was led away through the crowd, with disapproving looks following him, the square began to calm. As the energy in the square shifted to one of respect and admiration, the crowd started to disperse. Yet many stayed to share their thoughts aloud. "That was incredible," one man said, shaking his head in awe. "He did not even break a sweat or lose his temper." A woman added, "That is true strength." Nearby, a veteran lingered. He stepped forward once more, his voice soft but full of gratitude. "You reminded all of us what it means to stand for something. Thank you," he said. The royal guard did not reply. He turned back to his post and resumed his stoic stance, as if nothing had happened. Within moments, he was again perfectly still, a living picture of discipline and composure. The palace in the background stood majestic and timeless, as it always had. The royal guard remained, his bright red tunic neat, and his bearskin hat now carefully adjusted so that no one would notice the small disturbance. To most, it appeared as if nothing unusual had taken place. He was still and silent, a sentinel of duty. But for those who had witnessed what happened that day, the guard was no longer merely a symbol. He was a man who had stepped beyond old tradition to protect someone in need. The confrontation between the rough man and the guard left an unforgettable mark on everyone present, a reminder of what it truly means to serve with honor and strength. As the crowd finally dispersed, voices could be heard sharing their thoughts. "I will never forget that," a young woman said to her friend, clutching her phone. "He did not just stand there, he protected that man without ever losing his cool." Her friend nodded, glancing back at the guard. It was not just about strength. It was the calm, the composure. That is what real heroes do. Nearby, a father knelt to speak to his son, who had watched the entire event with wide eyes. "Did you see how brave he was?" the father asked. The boy nodded with wonder. "He did not even get angry, Dad. He just stopped the bully like it was nothing." The father smiled and ruffled his son's hair. "That is because real strength is not about anger. It is about control. Remember that." Even those who had been hesitant to get involved felt inspired. A middle-aged man turned to his wife as they walked away, saying, "I did not think he would move. I thought he would just stand there and take it." The wife replied, "But he did not only defend himself, he protected someone else. That is what makes him a true royal guard." The veteran lingered in the square long after most of the crowd had left. He stood quietly, his eyes fixed on the royal guard who had saved him. The weight of the moment settled over him as he remembered his own long service, the battles fought, the losses endured, more than most people could imagine. But today, standing in the shadow of the palace, he felt something he had not felt in a long time: hope. The guard's actions were not just a display of strength, they were a testament to discipline, courage, and a deep sense of duty. With a final glance at the guard, the veteran turned and walked away, his steps lighter than they had been in years. In the face of aggression and mockery, the royal guard had stood firm. Not for himself, but for those who could not stand alone. His actions reminded everyone that true strength is not loud or boastful. It does not seek attention or applause. True strength is calm, deliberate, and rooted in the courage to do what is right, even when no one else will. That day, the guard's silence spoke volumes, but his actions shouted even louder in a world full of noise. What did you think of the Royal Guard's actions? Have you ever seen someone stand up for what is right in such a calm and powerful way? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, do like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring tales of honor, resilience, and courage. Remember, real strength is quiet, deliberate, and always in the service of others.